Hello, everybody. It's Ademo Freeman with copblock.org. I want to take a moment and discuss with you via this vlog my recent interaction with the Parma Police that ultimately led to me serving 1 day in jail and possibly having a $106 fine levied against me via credit unions or other means of the state, which I'll touch on later. First, for those of you who don't know, I was in Parma, Ohio, where I've been spending a lot of time since last year with the Greater Cleveland Cop Block founder, Dio Odalecki. Dio is currently jailed, doing 240 days in their jail for essentially filming the police. You can see the information on that story in the links in the description of this video. Since I was there 1 day, I was also pulled over by a Parma police officer and issued a ticket for failure to use my blinker. What happened was I was driving northbound on a road, 2-lane road. One of those lanes was closed for construction. All the cars bunched up into the open lane. Upon the conclusion of the construction, I left the congested cars and merged into the right lane. If I used my blinker or if I did not use my blinker, I honestly don't know. All I know for certain is that I didn't harm anybody, didn't hit or damage anybody's property, nor did I even come close to it. Nevertheless, less than a minute later, there were red and blue lights in my rear view, and I was pulled over and, like I stated, issued a ticket for improper lane change or continuous lane change, whatever, and was given a court date. On the first court date, it was courtroom assembly line. Call your name up, give your plea, stamp the form, move the person to the next line. Essentially, every person that came through, the state collected on average $150. While I was in court that day, the state took in about $3,500 just with the people who showed up. Who knows how many tickets were paid without contesting or without coming into court at all. So on one afternoon, the Parma Municipal Court took in $3,500 plus. Yet, when it was my turn, I pled no contest. The reason why I pled no contest instead of not guilty was because when you plead not guilty, the trial normally takes several months, sometimes a year or more, depending on the place, and I had no interest in dragging this case out that long. Nevertheless, I was fined $156, at which time I stated to the magistrate that I had no intention of paying him, and he asked me why, and I told him, how I just told you, that my action, though it may have been legal, it may have been illegal, didn't harm anybody or cause any damage, and I had no intention of giving money to people who are attempting to extort others. To me, any ticket or fine that has no victim is extortion. And so I refused to pay the ticket. The fake judge at the time, I don't believe he's even a magistrate, stated to me that I would have to come back for an indigent hearing, at which time I stated to them I have no intention of answering any of their financial questions. Nevertheless, I was given another court date and told to come back. And before I left, I made sure to have the magistrate explain to everybody how that is the threat of violence. He said he wasn't threatening me. I asked him twice what happens if I don't show up to the court date he just sent me, in which he finally concluded that men with guns would bring me to his courtroom, i.e. the police. So it most certainly was a threat if I didn't show up. So now I was threatened with money to be taken from me if I didn't go to court. It would automatically be a judgment against me. Then when I did go to court and say I wouldn't pay, I was told I had to come back again or men with guns would come and cage me. Not wanting that, I once again showed up to court, refused to answer the questions and or pay the fine. I was given options of community service or payment plans, all of which had to be approved by the state. I countered those suggestive punishments with donating to my own charity or doing community service to a charity of my choosing. All of that was denied, at which time I brought up the point that, well, if this is just about money, which it is, the city of Parma will collect $156 from me, and if they don't and I refuse, then they will lock me in a cage and collect that from taxpayers or individuals who have nothing to do with the situation. And so, at the conclusion of that hearing, I was taken to the Parma City Jail, where Dio Odalecki is currently caged, though we did not get to see each other. And I spent 24 hours in that jail instead of paying them $156. Now, $50 of that fine was the actual offense, $50. $106 of it is for court costs, which is ironic in itself because the government takes tax money to pay for such buildings, but then charges me for the times that I use those buildings. And by use, I mean use under the threat of violence. And so it's very, coercive and violent. Anyways, the $106 will either be sent to a collection agency or a block will be put on my license and vehicle registration, meaning that when I go to renew one or the other, I will most likely be forced, once again, to pay the city of Parma before I'll be able to renew any of those state permission slips. Some might be asking yourself right now, why would you do this? Why wouldn't you just go on a payment plan or do the community service? That answer for me is simple, and it's a twofold answer, but the first one, with most of my work at Coplock, is that I wanted to prove a point. In the beginning of both court hearings, the fake judge and the magistrate both stated to those in the audience, I guess, that no one would be going to jail over these crimes and that they were only municipal offenses. Yet, if you've been reading the pages of copblock.org, you understand that everything the police and or government say or do, or say and or want you to do, is backed by the barrel of a gun. Essentially, the threat of force will be used against you, as it was with me, since I denied to pay their extortion and questioned their legitimacy and even their intentions. The actions that were taken towards me did not protect the people of Parma. They didn't benefit the people of Parma. In fact, they hurt the people of Parma. And so I wanted to make the point that if you don't do what the man says, then they most certainly will use violence and or force against you. The other point I was trying to make was a personal one. As I mentioned, the Parma Police are currently caging Dio Odalecki, the founder of Greater Cleveland Copblock. And since they have him in his cage, I am required to be in Parma to assist with some of the duties that Dio did with the Copblock network. Therefore, I wouldn't be able to just skip out on the ticket or avoid them like I have in the past with some other tickets. So since I had to bring it to their attention, I might as well have brought it all the way to their attention. I didn't want to plead not guilty and drag it out and maybe win on a technicality or some other things, but instead take it head on, bring it right to them and let them know, we are not going to be intimidated by their threats and their demands. Lastly, as some of you might be thinking right now, is that, was this effective? For me personally, sure, I believe it was effective. I made my point, and I got to cause some headaches to those who are causing me and my friends headaches. Is that an overall win for police, accountability, the police state, lessening the police state? Probably not. Yet, there is a lot of value in, refusing to pay extortions, though that value is only seen when it is done in masses. And so the goal of mine, was just to show the violence in the system, where opposed to if, all 40 or 50 people that were in court, had they all pled even just not guilty and decided to go to a trial, the system would most likely crumble on its own weight. these entities, these government buildings, county, city, whatever, for a fact could never prosecute all the people they write tickets for, especially if the whole system was played out as far as trials and everything else. So, while this probably wasn't the best use of my time, I was happy to make the point, and I hope that others could be inspired to say no and do these in mass numbers, because after all, nothing is going to change until we make it change. So, the next time you have traffic court, or know of somebody who has traffic court, at a bare minimum, talk them into pleading not guilty and taking a trial. Talk in as many of your friends, families, and relatives as you can to do that. Eventually, the system will cave under its own weight. Until next time, I'm Ademo Freeman, and remember, badges don't grant extra rights. Peace.